Welcome to episode 38 of the Ask the Law Firm Seller Show. My name is Jeremy Poock, and I lead Senior Attorney Match. In today's Ask Show, we'll have two questions plus Poock's Post. For today's Poock's Post, we'll focus on the importance of biz dev attribution to law firm sales. So let's jump right into it with our first question today. Our first question today is, what are the components to valuing a law firm? So when it comes to valuing a law firm, there are five key components to the valuation for what a law firm is worth. Those five components consist of the following, and we refer to these as value chips. The first two value chips, they consist of the client list and the referral source list that a law firm has developed over the course often of decades. Taken together, the client list and the referral source list comprise that all-important book of business. The third value chip are the key employee lawyers and support staff at a law firm. That is, the lawyers and the support staff who do the work day in and day out. They are the drivers of the revenue at the law firm. The fourth value chip is the subject matter knowledge. That is, that the lawyers at a given law firm, they develop niches over time in particular areas of subject matter knowledge, and that attracts clients who know that those lawyers, that law firm, specialize in particular practice areas for which they are subject matter knowledge experts. They know the practice areas, they attract the clients and do high quality work. And the fifth component in the valuation of a law firm is the law firm's digital value. This is still relatively new when it comes to valuing law firms because in the past, law firms have been led by traditional rainmaker attorneys. Now that we are heading towards 2030, we are well beyond 2020 and that digital pivot that happened in 2020, more and more law firms are transitioning to becoming digital rainmaker law firms. And as a result, their digital value continues to rise. Taken together, those five components of value, they raise two other questions. Who wants and needs the five components of value, and what will they pay for it? When it comes to who wants and needs the five components of value that a selling law firm offers, we continue to see in the marketplace that it is growing law firms that want and need those five components of value as compared to, let's say, an internal successor at a given law firm. Growing law firms, what we find is that they have developed practice areas, subject matter knowledge, they have their own client base, they have talented lawyers and support staff at their firms. So as they're considering how to grow, growing law firms really need three resources to boost their growth. And those three resources are really combined in those five components of value that a selling law firm provides. So first and foremost is growing law firms need new clients. That is the book of business that a selling law firm offers, extremely valuable to growing law firms, the clients and the referral sources. Second resource that growing law firms need is the experienced workforce. They want and need talented lawyers, experienced para staff, experienced legal admins that have deep subject matter knowledge in the areas of practice that growing law firms have and that they typically want to build upon. And then what else do growing law firms want and need in what we call today's 3.0 digital era? For the legal industry is digital content. They want and need to be publishing digital content. Multi-channel digital marketing is really becoming the norm for today's growing law firms, and they want the digital value of selling law firms. They also want to take that traditional subject matter knowledge that's typically in the minds of selling lawyers and the lawyers at their firms and convert that subject matter knowledge into digital content to attract the attention of clients to the growing law firms. And then the question is, all right, well, what is a growing law firm? What is a purchaser going to pay upon the five components of value of a given selling law firm? And when it comes to law firm sales, it's really two types of law firm sales and two structures for how purchasing firms will engage in negotiations and purchase what I'm typically calling senior attorney-led firms, but can be other firms as well. But let's concentrate first on senior attorney-led firms. What we continue to see in the marketplace when it comes to those five components of value that senior attorney-led firms offer, and senior attorneys are attorneys that have practiced more than 30 years. They're often traditional rainmaker attorneys. They have built a book of business over the course of their careers, and their law firm, the basis of the value is very much entrenched with that book of business. As a result, senior attorney-led firms are typically sold via law firm sales 1.0. And law firm sales 1.0, the purchaser is often paying an earn-out price based upon the performance of the book of business over a negotiated period of time. What that means is that buyer and seller negotiate a percentage of the revenues collected from the book of business paid over a negotiated period of time, because when it comes to those five components of value, there is a much higher value placed on the book of business as compared to, let's say, the digital value. And because of the risk associated, at least through the buyer's eyes, that the book of business may not perform as well for the purchasing firm as it did for the rainmaker-led senior attorney firm, a purchasing firm is much more comfortable offering earn-out terms via law firm sales 1.0. Now let's look at law firm sales 2.0. When it comes to the five components of value for a law firm, when today's, I'll call newer law firms, what we are starting to call digital rainmaker law firms, startup law firms as well, as those firms continue to attract more and more clients digitally because of their focus on multi-channel digital marketing and a lesser dependence on traditional rainmaker attorneys, then those law firms, digital rainmaker law firms, the startup type law firms, they are showing real digital value and brand equity. What does that mean? That means that they have real analytics that are showing that such and such percentage of their clients are retaining the firm, are contacting the firm because of their digital value and brand equity. I'll just give an example. We have a client right now, an estate planning client. We know based upon years of data that approximately 55% of all new inquiries into their firm are generated digitally. That is going to translate into digital value, brand equity, and as a result, in law firm sales 2.0, because of a higher valuation on the digital value of rainmaker type law firms, startup firms, firms that can show real digital value, the purchase price is a combination of a fixed price plus earn-out terms attributable to the book of business. We will see more and more as firms continue transitioning to becoming digital rainmaker law firms and the value of their digital value and the five components of value rising, that we will see more and more higher prices in law firm sales with fixed pricing at closings based upon reliable multiples plus earn-out terms on that traditional book of business. Okay, so for today's second question. Today's second question is the following. I wish that my internal successor showed more interest in biz dev. What can I do to explain the importance of biz dev to owning a law firm? So we hear a version of that question a lot, and it really makes me think of two experiences that I had much earlier in my career. In my second year of law school, I had an interesting summer job. And on one of the first days in that position, the lawyer who I worked with said, Jeremy, when clients come to you, they don't necessarily realize the issues that they're presenting. It was a personal injury law firm, and that just stuck with me in terms of, oh, that's really fascinating. What else is a client presenting besides what the client thinks that they're necessarily presenting? Second experience was a great legal writing professor in law school who just hammered us with challenging the premise in a given legal writing, a brief, or whatnot. So why bring these up in the context of this question? So we want to point out what's the issue here, right? The issue of someone that's looking to sell their law firm, and here we're really focusing on a senior attorney-led firm, someone that's built their practice, or several lawyer owners that built their practice. They have key employee lawyers that practice at the firm. They would love for those key employee lawyers to be internal successors to take over the practice. The underlying issue is, to whom can I sell my law firm? And then the challenging the premise is, okay, the question is, how do I teach my internal successor how important biz dev is and how to do biz dev better? But the challenge to that premise is, well, does your internal successor, key employee lawyer, do they really enjoy business development? Do they like to do it? Do they want to do it? Or do they just want to do the work? So with those challenges put out and questioning the premise put out there, let's just give an overview of what we see in the marketplace with internal successors generally. What we continue to see is that, and if we could just go back to the past slide for just a moment, and what we continue to see is that key employee lawyers, what they really want, and this is very much speaking and painting with a broad brush here, but we consistently see it, is that they want a reliable, predictable, and safe job. They want the clients to be able to be put in front of them, files put in front, on their desk, work those files, work with those clients in the context of a reliable, predictable, and safe job without conducting business development. Now let's look at that a little bit differently. When it comes to senior attorney lawyers that want to sell their practices to their internal successors, to their key employee lawyers, we're often pointing out the false expectations that that's based upon. So that is that challenging that premise. Because why is it that they aren't interested in business development? Why don't they want to purchase your law firm? It's really because of what we call 4 false expectations. Those 4 false expectations, and it's not a bad thing, it's just reality as we see it. Those 4 false expectations consist of the following. Your key employee lawyers, they only want a job. Just drop the mic on that. They only want a job. They don't want to purchase their boss's law firm. And as we'll mention in a moment, they can't afford to either. The second false expectation what the false expectations are built upon is that your key employee lawyers, they went to law school and not business school. They love the profession of law. They like doing legal work. They did not go to law school nor practice at a law firm with aspirations to become the owner of a small business law firm. The third reason why your key employee lawyers don't want to purchase your firm is really because they can't afford to. Right? They've got so many other expenses going on in their lives, whether that is their mortgage, saving for retirement, very importantly, continuing to pay student loan debt well into their 30s, 40s, sometimes even into their 50s, saving for their kids' college, so many other expenses that when you add on the expense of purchasing their boss's law firm, it's just a bridge too far. And then finally, they just assume that as your key employee lawyers, we find they just assume for whatever reason that their boss is just never going to retire. So now as we think about, all right, your key employee lawyers, if they don't want to do business development as much as you wish they could, and they don't want to purchase your firm, well, let's challenge the premise a little bit more and think about, well, what do they offer in the context of a senior attorney who wants to sell his or her practice? And what we're showing here is the 5 components to valuing a law firm. When it comes to valuing a law firm, those 5 components consist of your client list and referral source list, the book, that is your book of business, your key employee lawyers and support staff. This is a huge value of your law firm. If these people don't want to, that is your key employee lawyers, if they do not want to purchase your law firm, and if we think about who does want to purchase your law firm, which is typically a growing firm, Growing law firms, when they are purchasing senior attorney-led firms, they want and need your key employee lawyers and support staff to continue working with the clients that comprise your book of business and to work with their clients. They are a hugely valuable component to the value of your law firm. Just to say that really clearly, even though your key employee lawyers do not want to purchase your law firm, growing law firms that do want to purchase your law firm, they want and need your key employee lawyers and support staff. And then just to finish off the additional 5 components, the 4th component is the subject matter knowledge that your firm has developed, which your key employee lawyers and support staff have. And the 5th component is digital value that growing law firms want and need as well. So when it comes to this question of your key employee lawyers doing more biz dev, but what they really want to have is a reliable, predictable, and safe job, let's do a compare and contrast, okay? We mentioned a moment ago that it is growing law firms that by and large are the purchasers of senior attorney-led law firms. When those sales happen, there are 4 winners that result from the sale of a senior attorney-led firm to a growing law firm. First and foremost is the senior attorney, him or herself, right? They're able to monetize the practice and they're able to head towards retirement while continuing to practice sometimes as of-counsel attorneys. Second winner is your key employee lawyers and support staff. Why are they such big winners? Because they get to maintain their reliable, predictable, and safe job, and they add value to growing law firms, really in terms of these the 3rd and 4th winners here, because your clients are the 3rd winner when it comes to sales of senior attorney-led firms to growing law firms, because the clients know that they will have ongoing, competent, and zealous representation, often by those key employee lawyers that join a growing law firm as part of a sale. And the 4th winner, when it comes to law firm sales to growing firms, is the growing firms themselves, where they are acquiring clients, and very importantly, and here's the theme, is that they are welcoming in your key employee lawyers and support staff as well. They are a necessary component almost every deal that we do. The growing purchasing firms, they hire your key employee lawyers and support staff. Now let's contrast that to the following. Let's say, in the context of this question, selling attorney, or you're contemplating selling your firm, you're just thinking, wow, I just wish that my key employee lawyers would recognize the importance of business development. And when they recognize the importance of business development, they'll want to and they'll be ready to purchase my firm. And what we're showing here is the possibility of a Random Tuesday event. Because what we continue to see in the marketplace is that your key employee lawyers, what is it that they really want? They want a reliable, predictable, and safe job. And if and really when key employee lawyers start thinking that their job isn't going to be reliable, predictable, and safe because their boss is putting more pressure on them to do the business development, to eventually purchase the firm that they don't want to purchase and they can't afford, what we find is that a Random Tuesday event can happen when one or more of those key employee attorneys will walk down the hall and they will say, it's been a great ride here. I appreciate that you've employed me for the last 5 years, 10 years, sometimes even 20 plus years, but I had to make this decision for myself and for my family, and I'm giving you either 2 weeks or 4 weeks notice. On a Random Tuesday, when that happens, that has a short-term impact when it comes to law firm sales, because now you've lost key billers when it comes to the lawyers in particular. You've either lost billers when it comes to hourly billing type firms or contingency type firms. You've lost the resources to be able to handle your contingency fee matters. Hard to replace these folks. And in the longer term, your law firm actually becomes less valuable because, as we mentioned before, growing law firms, what do they need? They need your key employees. They need those key employee lawyers and your key employee staff, paralegals, legal assistants. And if any of those key people leave you on a Random Tuesday, what we find is sometimes growing law firms will say, wow, your firm looks great. We love the book of business, but we don't have the people power here to be able to service your clients. I'm sorry. I wish you actually had, those lawyers that had left you X number of months ago or years ago that you had a hard time replacing. So just to come full circle here, when it comes to your key employee lawyers, who you would love to be able to become better rainmakers, be interested in business development. If they're really not interested in business development, they're likely not interested to purchase your small business law firm. But who does want them? Growing purchasing firms, if you're considering selling your law firm, growing purchasing law firms, they want and need your key employee lawyers and support staff. And when it comes to those four winners for when growing law firms purchase senior attorney-led firms, a key winner in those sales are your key employee lawyers and support staff, because you've delivered to them. They've received what it is that they want and need, which is a reliable, predictable, and safe job, as compared to aspiring to purchase their boss's law firm, which they really don't want to do and they can't afford to do either. Okay, so for today's Poock's post. Today's Poock's post is the following: the importance of biz dev attribution to law firm sales. So here, let's do a compare and contrast to what we'll call as pre-Google, in a lot of respects, pre-2020 to post-2020 when it comes to business development attribution in the context of law firm sales. So pre-Google in particular, attribution, client attribution, that is, to business development, is relatively simple. That is, lawyers for generations developed a book of business, portables, however one wants to call it, and they built that book of business in person. They did that via in-person networking, via live in-person CLEs, and going to community events and setting yourself up in person as a subject matter knowledge expert, as well as writing articles for journals, newspapers, and whatnot. Also, your best-in-class rainmaker attorneys would go to breakfasts, lunches, dinners, bars, events. They would sponsor events, have tables at events to develop that in-person goodwill, and of course, hand out hundreds, even thousands of business cards per year. And for those law firms that could afford it, they would place ads in the yellow pages, be on TV and radio. And by and large, when it came to, or really comes to, because we're still working with lawyers that developed what I'll call old school books of business, they developed their books of business that hard way, and the attribution of the book by and large is attributed to one or more traditional rainmaker attorneys at a given law firm. And when it comes to valuing that book of business, it's really a matter of knowing who are the clients, who are the referral sources attributable to rainmaker attorneys. Now let's contrast that. Here we are heading towards 2030, coming out of that digital pivot that is already many years behind us at this point in 2020, when the world pivoted digitally and clients began more and more to depend upon, rely upon, look to the internet when it comes to retaining, searching for lawyers and law firms. What we are seeing now is the rise of digital rainmaker law firms. And digital rainmaker law firms, they're developing business via Google, via AI, multi-channel digital marketing on social media platforms. Of course, your website that you are adding content to on a regular basis. Of course, there still is old school networking that happens, but just for anyone that's watching or listening to this, question that we're regularly asking is, when was the last time that you reordered 500 new business cards because you gave them out at networking type events? And then we're also seeing that digital rainmaker law firms are purchasing other firms because as they're bringing in clients digitally, they need to be acquiring talented lawyers and support staff, which can come out of M&A type deals, as well as books of business and the digital value that comes out of M&A as well. And it raises the question about attribution. So let's look at the 5 components of valuing a law firm. So law firms, both pre-Google, pre-2020, and post-2020, fall into the same category when it comes to the components to valuing the firm. It's just that the components differ markedly for traditional rainmaker-led firms and digital rainmaker-led firms. Here's why. So the 5 components to value a law firm consist of the following, which we call value chips. The first 2 value chips are your client list and your referral source list. That's the book of business. The third component is the value of your key employee lawyers and support staff. The fourth value chip is the subject matter knowledge, right? How many practice areas has the firm developed and has deep subject matter knowledge in that attracts clients to hire those firms. And the fifth component is the digital value of the given firm. And here, in terms of that compare and contrast between traditional rainmaker law firms and digital rainmaker law firms, what we see is that your traditional rainmaker firms have higher value based upon the client list and the referral source list, the book of business. That value, though, is really limited to what the book of business can produce. Your rainmaker-led firms and your startup law firms today are, I'll call it, scoring higher. They are bringing in more business digitally because clients are looking more and more online for lawyers to hire. And the attribution when it comes to digital rainmaker law firms is such that we can be analyzing data analytics on a regular basis. That can be weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, to see how clients are coming into the firm. We have a client right now. That client knows that 55% of all of their inquiries are coming in digitally, and we know exactly where those digital inquiries are coming from. And here I'll give kudos to a colleague, Angel Reyes of Angel Reyes and Associates, based in Dallas. It's a significant personal injury law firm, single event personal injury law firm. And I've heard Angel say that their law firm will not invest in marketing efforts unless they can measure those marketing efforts. And that really gets to the importance of attribution. I really think that's what Angel is getting at as well, is that as we are building value in our law firm, in today's day and age, when clients are looking online for lawyers, well, we should be able to measure our marketing efforts and identify the attribution of which marketing efforts brought in and bring in clients because of those digital marketing efforts. And now let's look at how that attribution pays off when it comes to law firm sales 2.0. Because in law firm sales 2.0, when the digital value and brand equity of a law firm can be measured, the clients that are coming into the firm can be attributed to multiple areas of digital marketing, then a purchasing firm and a bank or even private equity behind a purchaser will be able to place, I shouldn't say will be, because this is not the future tense, this is the present tense, can measure that digital value and brand equity to develop a fixed price. The importance for those law firms that continue to transition to becoming digital rainmaker law firms is recognizing that as you are putting money into your digital marketing efforts, and you can see it in your P&L, we see it in your P&Ls, right? Spending more and more year in and year out on digital marketing efforts. Well, let's make sure that we are also attributing, measuring, as Angel would say, the results of your digital marketing efforts in terms of the clients that are retaining your firm, the revenues that are coming in predictably and reliably to your firm, because all of that data will increase the value of your firm in terms of a multiple, whether that is of EBITDA, net profits, or other multiples that will continue to develop with law firm sales. But the message here is that as a result of higher digital value and brand equity, we continue to see higher fixed prices of digital rainmaker law firms, startup type law firms, paid at a closing table, plus earnout terms based upon that traditional book of business. And that is episode 38 of the Ask the Law Firm Seller Show.